All right, let's jump right into this explainer, because today we are cracking open an absolute thriller of a historical cold case. We're talking about a mystery that has completely baffled historians, archaeologists, and, well, pretty much everyone for over 4 centuries. The Roanoke colony. Specifically, the terrifying, almost cinematic mystery of how 115 English men, women, and children seemingly just vanished off the face of the earth. But listen, we're going to put the old ghost stories to the side today. Instead, we're looking at this through the lens of modern forensic science, hardcore archaeology, and genetic data to uncover what actually happened.
So picture this scene. It's August of 1590. The colony's governor, John White, is finally returning to Roanoke Island off the coast of North Carolina after a long trip back to England for supplies. As his ship draws closer to land, there are no fires burning, no greeters waving from the shore, just this eerie, heavy silence. White steps ashore and finds absolutely no bodies. No signs of a violent struggle. The buildings are completely dismantled, and the only clue left behind? The cryptic word Croatoan, carved right into a wooden post. Seriously, how did 115 people just vanish without a single trace?
To really understand this disappearance, we've got to look at the timeline. Sir Walter Raleigh sent initial explorers back in 1584 to find a good spot for a settlement. By 1587, the colonists actually arrived, hoping to establish a permanent foothold. But they were immediately under-provisioned. It was bad. Governor White was forced to sail right back to England that exact same year to get desperate relief. Now, he was only supposed to be gone for 3 months, but his return was delayed for 3 excruciating years. Why? Because the Spanish Armada attacked England, and literally every available ship was commandeered for the war effort. When he finally made it back in 1590, the colony was just empty.
For decades, historians have chased down a few major theories, our primary suspects, if you will. Did a massive hurricane wipe them out? Well, White found neatly dismantled buildings, not chaotic storm wreckage. What about disease and famine? Totally possible, but 0 mass graves were ever found at the site. Did they relocate north to the Chesapeake Bay, which was actually their original intended destination? Or did they move inland and assimilate with local Native American tribes? To get past all the historic guesswork, we're bringing in modern science.
Which brings us to Section 1, the forensics, a brutal 800-year drought.
To figure out the devastating environmental conditions these colonists were facing, modern researchers didn't look at old dusty journals. Nope, they looked at trees. Specifically, ancient bald cypress and eastern red cedar trees across the mid-Atlantic. By examining the cross-sections of these ancient trunks, scientists can literally reconstruct historic climates. A wide ring means plenty of rain, while a narrow ring, that means severe drought. These trees are like silent living witnesses that were growing right there, exactly when the colonists were struggling on Roanoke.
And those tree rings revealed a truly staggering number: 800. The data definitively proved that the exact window between 1587 and 1589 was the most severe, driest drought the entire region had seen in 800 years. I mean, the timing literally could not have been worse. Imagine trying to grow foreign crops in a completely brand new world, and you just happen to pick the absolute worst drought in a millennium. Talk about incredibly terrible historical luck.
The absolutely crucial takeaway here is that this extreme drought triggered a massive, severe famine. Corn, beans, and squash, the staples for the local Algonquin people, were just decimated. Even the indigenous populations themselves didn't have enough food to trade with the English, so it became a visceral, immediate reality. Staying together as a massive group of 115 people on Roanoke Island meant certain starvation. They had to disperse to survive.
Moving on to Section 2, Hidden Clues, John White's 400-year-old map. Okay, so if they dispersed, where did these desperate colonists go? Well, the next massive break in the case was actually hiding in plain sight on a 400-year-old document. For centuries, people have studied Governor John White's map of eastern North America. It's known as La Virginia Pars. But recently, using modern technology and light tables, researchers revealed that 2 tiny patches of paper had been carefully, deliberately glued over the original map to hide something. And underneath one of those patches, the distinct symbol of a fort pointing to a location near the western end of the Albemarle Sound. Researchers dubbed this mysterious location Site X.
Now, this hidden fort perfectly matched a very specific historical record. Right before he left for England, John White wrote that he instructed the colonists to move, quote, 50 miles into the mainland to escape trouble. And get this, if you measure the exact distance from Roanoke Island to that hidden fort symbol at Site X near Salmon Creek, it is exactly 50 miles. The map was literally pointing the way the whole time.
That leads us right into Section 3, the dig, excavating sites X and Y. Armed with these specific map coordinates, archaeologists from the First Colony Foundation brought in ground-penetrating radar and just started digging. And we aren't talking about finding generic 18th century materials here. They unearthed a highly specific collection of late 16th century Elizabethan ceramics used for consuming and storing food. We're talking Surrey Hampshire borderware, North Devon baluster jars, London redware, and even French Martincamp stoneware. The presence of these everyday artifacts, battered by years of plowing but undeniably English, absolutely proves that Elizabethan colonists lived at these satellite sites. But here is the critical distinction you need to keep in mind. Archaeologists didn't find evidence of a massive 115-person mega-settlement at Site X or the nearby Site Y. Instead, the consensus is that the colony splintered into numerous small satellite groups, because honestly, dragging 115 starving people together during an apocalyptic drought is a terrible survival strategy, right? Just as a previous food shortage in 1586 had forced an earlier colony to scatter, the 1587 colonists broke into extended families or smaller units just to stretch out whatever scarce food they could forage or trade for.
Section 4, the Lumbee and Hatteras Link.
So, if the colonists scattered inland, what actually happened to their descendants? Well, history isn't just told in pottery, it's told in biology. Think about it like this. On one side, you have the European colonists who historically carried the influenza virus. On the other side, the indigenous mainland tribes. Historians and biologists agree that the New World was completely free of the flu prior to European contact. Yet recent archaeological research points to a sudden outbreak of influenza on the North Carolina mainland at the exact time the colonists dispersed. Since that virus requires direct physical contact to spread, this is biological proof that the colonists physically merged with the mainland tribes.
Furthermore, long-standing historical research has pointed to the Lumbee people as the likely descendants of these assimilated colonists. What this means for us today is that the ultimate evidence is hiding right in the DNA. An HLA profile study conducted back in the late 1970s provided genetic data directly linking Lumbee genetics back to European markers that matched the original colonists. Modern DNA studies are continuously being explored to clarify this biological identity even further, but the genetic breadcrumbs, they are absolutely there.
Which brings us to our final section. Section 5, the verdict. Assimilated, not lost.
When you bring together the tree rings, that hidden map, and the Elizabethan pottery, we arrive at a powerful new understanding. I actually want to read this quote from Mark Horton, a historical archaeology professor. He describes the fate of the colonists as one of peaceful assimilation, forming a functioning society. They didn't vanish into the ether, they adapted. The English settlers and the Croatoan and mainland communities lived together. They shared resources, they shared knowledge, and they shared bloodlines just to survive the worst drought in 800 years.
So the most crucial point you should take away from this explainer is the stark difference between the spooky ghost story and the actual truth. The myth tells us that 115 people mysteriously vanished into thin air, leaving only a carved word behind like some horror movie. But the reality, dug up by modern forensics, is a really incredible story of human endurance. The colony splintered, they moved 50 miles inland to sites X and Y, exactly as Governor White had instructed, and they assimilated with local indigenous tribes to survive.
The lost colony wasn't lost. It was found by the people who already called this land home. It's just a brilliant reminder that history is rarely a dead end. It just waits for us to invent the right tools to uncover the truth. Which leaves us with one final, pretty exciting thought to ponder. What other legendary mysteries of history are just waiting for modern science to solve them?